I'm Melissa Thompson, 32, and until last month, I was living a predictable life as a software engineer in my modest Boston apartment. That Sunday morning started like any other coffee coding. Our family looked perfect from the outside. The four-bedroom colonial on Maple Street had a white picket fence and a tire swing that neighborhood kids envied. But inside those walls, a pattern was firmly established. I was the responsible, hard-working daughter, while my younger sister Amber was undeniably the golden child. My earliest memory of this dynamic was my sixth-grade science fair. I'd spent weeks building a working model of the solar system, complete with orbiting planets and factual data cards. My project won first place, earning a small trophy and a certificate. When I rushed home to share the news, my parents nodded distractedly, saying, "That's nice, honey," before returning to helping Amber with her homework. That same night, when Amber got a B on her spelling test after weeks of C's, my parents took the whole family out for ice cream to celebrate. By high school, the pattern was undeniable. When I was accepted to all 7 colleges I applied to, including 2 with scholarship offers, my parents made a passing comment about being relieved I'd have less student debt. 3 years later, when Amber decided she wanted to attend an expensive private university to study fashion design, my parents didn't hesitate to remortgage the house to fund her education. I put myself through college at the state university with a combination of merit scholarships, a packed course schedule. Weekends weren't for parties, but for taking online courses and building my portfolio. By 30, I'd become a senior software engineer at a respected tech company, each abandoned within a year. Throughout all this, I maintained what I'd call a cordial but distant relationship with my family. I'd visit for major holidays, send birthday gifts, and make the occasional weekend trip home. I'd long ago accepted that confronting my parents about their favoritism would lead nowhere. Whenever I'd hint at the disparity in the past, they'd dismiss it with, "Your sister just needs more support than you do," or "You've always been so independent, Melissa." My life in Boston was comfortable, if modest. My apartment was a 1-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a converted brownstone in Jamaica Plain. At 700 square feet, it wasn't spacious, but it had character: exposed brick walls, hardwood floors, and large windows that filled the space with natural light. I decorated it minimally but thoughtfully, splurging on a quality mattress and a good desk chair since I often brought work home. Romantically, I'd recently ended a 3-year relationship with Nathan, a graphic designer I'd met through work. We'd been compatible in many ways, but ultimately wanted different things. He was eager to leave Boston for the West Coast, while my career was firmly rooted here. The breakup had been amicable, but left me feeling contemplative about what I really wanted from life. My financial situation was stable. I had an emergency fund, contributed regularly to my 401k, and had been saving diligently for a down payment on a condo. Boston's real estate market was brutal, so I knew I'd need substantial savings to afford even a modest place in a decent neighborhood. And I preferred it that way. The last time I'd visited home, my mother had dropped hints about helping Amber with the down payment for her new house, and I deliberately changed the subject. The irony wasn't lost on me that despite being the financially responsible daughter, I was still living in a rented apartment while Amber had lived in a series of homes purchased with our parents' help. Her current house, a 4-bedroom in a desirable neighborhood, had been a gift for her 30th birthday, with my parents co-signing the mortgage and providing the down payment. I'd made peace with this reality, or so I thought. I had built my life on my terms, without owing anyone anything. My independence was a point of pride, even if it sometimes felt like cold comfort when comparing my life to Amber's. I had good friends, particularly my best friend Allison, who understood my family dynamics and provided the emotional support my parents never had. That Sunday morning, when my parents appeared at my door, I had been content with my life. Not ecstatic. Not miserable, but steadily working toward my goals. I had no idea that their unexpected arrival would upend everything I thought I knew about my family, my sister, and ultimately myself. After ushering my parents into my apartment, I made coffee while they settled awkwardly on my small sofa. Mom kept rearranging the throw pillows, a nervous habit she'd had for as long as I could remember. Dad stared out the window, his fingers drumming against his knee. So, I said, placing 2 mugs on the coffee table, "What exactly happened with the house? And why didn't you call before coming?" They exchanged a look that sent alarm bells ringing in my head. I'd seen that look before, when they'd broken the news that they couldn't attend my college graduation because Amber had a dance recital the same weekend. "Well, honey," Mom began, her voice unnaturally high, "Amber and Brad have been wanting a bigger place since little Madison was born, you know. Their house is lovely, but with 2 children now, they really need more space." I nodded slowly, already sensing where this was heading. "And our house has 4 bedrooms, Dad continued, which is perfect for them. We're getting older and the maintenance was becoming a lot. The yard work, the stairs." "So you sold them the house?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Another glance between them. "Not exactly," Mom said. "We gave it to them." "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds so transactional," Mom said with a nervous laugh. "We're family. We wanted to help them." "And where were you planning to live?" I asked, though I already knew the answer wasn't going to be good. "That's the thing," Dad said, suddenly finding his coffee fascinating. "We thought we'd stay with them for a while. We'd have the guest room. Help with the grandkids. But Amber said they need their space to settle in as a family." "She said that? After you gave her your house?" The disbelief in my voice was palpable. Mom rushed to defend her. "She's right, really. They're young, they need to establish their own household routines. And Brad works from home sometimes, so they need the extra room for his office." I took a deep breath, trying to process this information. "So where are you living now?" The silence that followed told me everything. "We were hoping," Dad finally said, "that we could stay with you. Just for a few weeks until we figure things out." The request hung in the air between us. My 700-square-foot apartment with 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a kitchenette that barely fit 1 person comfortably. And they wanted to move in. "A few weeks," I repeated, my mind racing. "And then what's the plan?" More uncomfortable glances. "We're not entirely sure yet," Mom admitted. "We have some savings, but Boston is so expensive. We might look at retirement communities in Florida eventually, but we need time to research." My heart sank as I realized a few weeks could easily become months. But what choice did I have? They were my parents, and despite everything, I couldn't turn them away. "You can take the bedroom," I heard myself saying. "I'll sleep on the pull-out couch." The relief on their faces would have been comical if the situation weren't so absurd. Within hours, my carefully curated space had been transformed. My parents' suitcases exploded across my bedroom. Dad's reading glasses and crossword puzzles covered my coffee table. Mom's collection of prescription bottles lined my bathroom counter. That first night on the pull-out couch, with its metal bar digging into my back, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how I'd ended up here. I was a successful professional in my 30s, sleeping on a sofa bed while my sister, who had never held a steady job, was moving into our family home with her husband and kids. Days turned into weeks, and the strain began to show. My work performance suffered as I struggled to get decent sleep. Privacy became a distant memory. My morning routine now involved waiting for Mom to finish her hour-long bathroom ritual before I could brush my teeth. My evening routine involved pretending not to hear Dad snoring through the thin wall separating my living room from my bedroom. The criticisms started subtly. "Melissa, don't you think it's time you invested in a bigger place?" Then came the comparisons. "Amber's new kitchen is just gorgeous. She's painting it this lovely sage green. Brad is so handy. He's already planning to build a treehouse for the kids in that big oak tree we always loved. Little Madison has the most adorable princess bed in your old room." I gritted my teeth and reminded myself it was temporary. But 3 weeks in, I overheard a phone conversation that changed everything. I had stepped out to grab takeout for dinner, but forgot my wallet and returned quietly. From the hallway, I could hear Mom's voice, sharp with excitement. "Yes, Amber, we're still with Melissa. It's cozy. Listen, did you talk to that realtor again? How much did he say you could list it for?" I froze, keys in hand. 700,000? That's wonderful. No, no, you absolutely shouldn't feel guilty. Your father and I gave you that house free and clear. What you do with it is your business. My stomach dropped as the truth hit me. Amber wasn't moving into our family home. She was selling it. And from the sound of it, my parents had no idea until now, but were completely supportive. Well, of course we're happy for you. That's a significant profit. Oh, the furniture too? I suppose we don't need those old things anyway. I slipped back out the door before she could discover me, my appetite gone. Standing on the sidewalk outside my building, I felt a wave of grief wash over me. The house where I'd grown up. The maple tree I'd climbed as a kid. The window seat in the living room where I'd read hundreds of books. The marks on the kitchen wall tracking my height year after year. All of it would be gone. Sold to strangers. And my parents, who had given away their greatest asset to their younger daughter, were now essentially homeless, living in my tiny apartment with no real plan for their future. That night, pretending I hadn't heard anything, I picked at my lo mein while Mom enthusiastically told me about Amber's plans to redo her house before listing it. She has such vision, Mom gushed. The realtor thinks with her upgrades, it could sell for well above asking price. I nodded and smiled, but inside, something had broken. Not just my heart at losing my childhood home, but something fundamental in how I viewed my family. For the first time, I saw clearly that this pattern would never end unless I did something to break it. By the 1-month mark of my parents' day, my life had become unrecognizable. My morning routine now started at 5:30 a.m. so I could shower before they woke up. I worked late at the office most nights to avoid the cramped conditions at home. When I did return to my apartment, I'd find evidence of their day scattered everywhere. Dishes in the sink, the TV blaring game shows, my food supplies depleted. The physical discomfort was manageable. The emotional toll was not. My work performance had declined noticeably. During a virtual meeting, my team lead, Jordan, messaged me privately, "Everything okay, Melissa? You seem distracted lately." I made excuses about not sleeping well, which wasn't entirely a lie. The pull-out couch was destroying my back, and I'd wake up multiple times each night to the sound of my father's midnight snack preparations or my mother's insomnia-driven cleaning sprees. One Tuesday evening, "There's still some bread if you want to make toast." Something inside me snapped. Not over the food, that was trivial, but over the pattern that had defined my entire life. Always taking care of myself, never expecting help, while Amber received everything. "I think we should talk," I said, closing the refrigerator and turning to face them. "The profit from the house will help secure their future." "And what about your future?" I countered. "Or mine, for that matter? I'm living on a sofa in my own apartment while you help Amber flip the family home for profit." "Now, that's not fair," Mom said, her voice taking on the wounded tone she always used when criticized. "We've never had to worry about you. You've always been so independent, so capable." "That's because you never gave me a choice." The words burst out louder than I intended. "I had to be independent because all your resources went to Amber. Do you know how hard I worked to put myself through college? Do you have any idea what it took for me to build my career while Amber bounced from one parent-funded project to another?" "That's different," Dad insisted. "Your sister needs more support. She's more sensitive." "She's 30 years old with a husband who makes 6 figures," I retorted. "She's not sensitive, she's entitled. And you've enabled her at every turn." The conversation devolved from there. My parents defending their choices, me finally voicing decades of hurt and frustration. It ended with my mother in tears and my father suggesting I had always been jealous of my sister. I went to bed that night, or rather, to couch, feeling both liberated and exhausted. For the first time, I'd said exactly what I thought about their favoritism. But nothing had changed. They still didn't see it. The final straw came 3 days later. I'd been working from home, sequestered in a corner of my living room while my parents watched TV with the volume too high. During a break, I went to my bedroom to get a charger from my desk drawer. There, spread across my bed, were my financial statements, bank accounts, investment portfolio, retirement savings. The folder I kept locked in my filing cabinet, the cabinet to which I now saw the lock had been broken. My mother appeared in the doorway, not even having the decency to look embarrassed at being caught snooping. "Melissa, why didn't you tell us you had this much saved? With your emergency fund alone, you could help us with a rental deposit on a small place." I stared at her, speechless with rage and disbelief. "And these investment returns are quite good," Dad added, joining her. "If you liquidated some of these positions." "Stop." My voice was deadly quiet. "Put my personal financial documents back exactly where you found them. Then we're going to have a conversation about boundaries." "Don't use that tone with us," Mom said. "We're just trying to figure out solutions here. Family helps family." "Really? Is that why you gave Amber a house and now want me to liquidate my retirement savings to solve the problem you created?" Before they could respond, my phone rang. It was Amber. My mother lunged for it. "It's your sister. Maybe she has news about the house listing." I snatched the phone away and saw the text preview on the screen. "Mom says you have enough saved to help them with a place. Can you handle that so they stop bugging me about staying with us after the sale?" Something cold and clarifying washed over me. They had already discussed my finances with Amber. My privacy had been completely violated, and they still expected me to solve their problems while Amber profited. I declined the call and turned to my parents. "Pack your things," I said calmly. "You have until Friday to find another arrangement. I'll pay for a hotel for 1 week. After that, you're on your own." Their shock would have been comical under other circumstances. They protested, threatened, cajoled, but something had changed in me. A sense of determination replacing my anger. "Let's do this." The morning after discovering my parents had invaded my privacy and discussed my finances with Amber, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Once my parents left for their daily house hunting excursion, which typically involved window shopping at expensive stores and a lengthy lunch, I made 2 important calls. The first was to Sophia Martinez, a real estate agent Allison had recommended. "I need discretion," I explained after outlining my situation. "My family can't know I'm involved." When I checked the real estate listings that evening, my heart skipped a beat. There it was, my childhood home, officially on the market. The listing price, $695,000. The photos showed my family home staged with modern furniture, the walls painted in trendy neutral colors, erasing any trace of the 30 years my family had lived there. Reviewing the listing. "The house has good bones, and the location is excellent. Schools in that district are highly rated. What's the chance of buying it anonymously?" I asked. "We can set up an LLC for the purchase," Sophia explained. "It's common enough, especially in competitive markets, that it shouldn't raise red flags. Your name won't appear on any documents your sister or her agent would see." We spent the next hour discussing strategy. The house had just been listed, but in this market, properties moved quickly. We needed to act fast, but not appear too eager. "I'll arrange a showing," Sophia said. "I'll go alone as the buyer's agent, scout it out, take detailed photos and videos for you." "Actually," I said, "I want to see it myself. I just can't let my sister know it's me." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "The seller is usually not present during showings, but there's always a risk." "I'll take that risk." 2 days later, wearing oversized sunglasses, a hat pulled low, and clothes I never would have normally chosen, I attended the open house at my childhood home. The disguise was probably unnecessary. Amber and I hadn't seen each other in person for over a year, but I couldn't risk being recognized. Walking through the front door was surreal. My old bedroom was now styled as a home office, no trace remaining of the teenage girl who dreamed of coding better software in this very space. The backyard oak tree where I'd built a rudimentary treehouse still stood, though the treehouse itself was long gone. As I wandered, I overheard other potential buyers discussing renovation plans. "We'd gut the kitchen immediately," said one woman to her husband. "Those cabinets are so dated." "The master bathroom needs a complete overhaul," commented another couple. "And these floors would all need to be replaced." Each comment felt like a personal affront. This wasn't just a house, it was the repository of my family's history. The kitchen cabinets they wanted to demolish had been installed by my grandfather. The dated bathroom tile had been chosen by my mother during a rare period when she'd been genuinely happy, singing as she reviewed samples. Near the end of the showing, I slipped into the basement, ostensibly to inspect the furnace, but really to visit my old hiding spot. Behind the water heater was a small alcove where I'd created a secret reading nook as a child. To my surprise, it was still there, untouched. I knelt down and found my initials carved into the baseboards, along with the date, MT 1999. Something solidified in me at that moment. This house shouldn't go to strangers who would erase every trace of the Thompson family. It should remain in the family, just not the family member everyone expected. I met Sophia in her car afterward, my decision made. "I want to make an offer," I said. "Slightly above asking, but with conditions." "How much above?" Sophia asked. The furniture my mother had told Amber she didn't need held sentimental value for me, even if it had none for them. With my offer strategy set, the next challenge was financial. My savings would cover about 30% of the purchase price, a healthy down payment, but not enough to avoid a substantial mortgage. I met with the mortgage broker, who reviewed my finances and income. The monthly payment would stretch my budget thin. I needed to increase my cash reserves quickly. I took on additional consulting work, coding through nights and weekends. I liquidated some of my non-retirement investments. I even sold my collection of vintage computer equipment that I'd been preserving since college. Every dollar counted. The strain of this secret mission while maintaining a normal facade for my parents was immense. Each morning, I'd leave for work but often head to meetings with Sophia, the mortgage broker. The most difficult part was hearing them discuss the sale of the house with Amber on speakerphone. "There was an open house today," she reported one evening. I always said that house was in the perfect location. I bit my tongue and focused on my laptop, pretending to work while actually reviewing the offer documents Sophia had prepared. The bidding process was nerve-wracking. As Sophia predicted, there were multiple offers. We submitted ours $710,000, with a 30-day closing period and all furniture included, through the LLC we'd established, MT Future Holdings. The initials were a small personal touch that no one else would understand. 2 agonizing days later, Sophia called. "They've accepted your offer," she said. Apparently, the furniture inclusion was the deciding factor. The seller mentioned sentimental attachments, but needing a fresh start. I nearly laughed out loud at the irony. Amber, claiming sentimental attachment to furniture she was perfectly willing to sell to a stranger. The next 3 weeks were a blur of paperwork, inspections, and financial maneuvers. Knowing my parents typically spent Tuesdays visiting old friends in Cambridge. The hardest part was keeping the secret while living with the very people I was secretly outmaneuvering. One evening, thinking of how I'd just canceled my planned summer trip to afford the home inspection fees. Another night, Mom found me reviewing mortgage documents, which I quickly hid. "What are you always working on these days?" she asked suspiciously. "Just a big project at work," I lied. "Deadline coming up." As the closing date approached. "But it must be good because she and Brad are looking at vacation properties in Cape Cod." I nodded and smiled, savoring the private knowledge that I was the buyer creating this windfall for my sister. The irony was almost worth the financial strain. The day before closing, Allison came over to help me prepare mentally. We sat at a cafe down the street from my apartment, well away from any chance of my parents overhearing. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "It's about reclaiming something that matters to me." "What about after? Have you thought about what happens when they find out?" I had thought about little else. "I have a plan for that too," I said, outlining the final phase of my strategy. As I spoke, I felt a strange mixture of emotions, anxiety about the financial responsibility I was taking on, satisfaction at the plan coming together, and underneath it all, a lingering sadness that it had come to this. But mostly, I felt a sense of power I'd never experienced before. For once in my life, I was taking control of my own story. "Tomorrow's the day," Allison said, raising her coffee cup in a toast. "To new beginnings. And long overdue endings," I added, clinking my cup against hers. Closing day dawned bright and clear, a perfect New England spring morning. I'd barely slept, running through mental checklists and rehearsing what I would say when the truth finally came out. By 6 a.m., I was already on my third cup of coffee, reviewing the final documents Sophia had sent over. My parents had been increasingly suspicious of my behavior, the late nights, the secretive phone calls, the unexplained absences. I needed a foolproof plan to keep them occupied while I attended the closing. The solution came from an unexpected source. At breakfast, Mom mentioned that one of their old friends, Harold, was having minor surgery that day. "We should visit him," she sighed, "but it's all the way at Boston Medical Center. And the transit system in this city is so confusing." "I could drop you off," I offered casually. "I have to go to that area for a work meeting anyway. You could visit Harold, have lunch nearby." Knowing Harold's procedure wouldn't be done until at least 2 p.m. That gave me a 4-hour window, plenty of time for the closing appointment at 11. As I drove to the title company's office, my phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Amber. "OMG, the buyer wants to close today. So exciting. Can't believe we got full asking plus 15K. We'll call you after with the good news." I smiled grimly at her enthusiasm. The good news she was so excited about was coming from me, though she had no idea. Sophia met me in the parking lot. Professional as always, but with a hint of excitement in her eyes. "Ready for this?" she asked. "More than ready," I replied, straightening my jacket. I'd dressed carefully that morning, a tailored navy suit that projected confidence and success. Today wasn't just about buying a house, it was about claiming my place in my family story. Amber and Brad had chosen not to attend in person, signing their documents remotely the day before. Just as well, it would have been impossible to maintain my anonymity face-to-face. For nearly an hour, I signed document after document, the mortgage agreement, the property tax forms, the deed transfer. With each signature, a strange calm settled over me. This felt right in a way few decisions in my life ever had. And that's the last one, the title agent finally announced, accepting my cashier's check for the closing costs. "Congratulations, MS. Thompson. You are officially the new owner of 47 Maple Street." Sophia handed me the keys, the same ornate brass keys that had hung on our family key hook for decades. "The property is officially yours. You can take possession immediately." I held the keys tightly, feeling their familiar weight. "Thank you, Sophia. For everything." "My pleasure," she replied with a knowing smile. "I have a feeling this house is exactly where it belongs." As we walked out, my phone rang. It was Amber. I declined the call, not ready for that conversation yet. I walked slowly up the familiar path, inserted the key into the lock, and stepped inside. The house was quiet, filled with afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. The staging furniture was still in place, modern pieces that looked nothing like our family's comfortable, worn furnishings. But soon, those familiar pieces would return. It was all in the contract. I moved through the room slowly, mentally replacing the stage decor with my memories. In the kitchen, I could almost see Mom baking birthday cakes at the counter. In the living room, Dad's old recliner would go back in the corner by the window. My bedroom would be mine again, not a sterile home office. As I climbed the stairs to the second floor, my phone exploded with notifications, texts and missed calls from both parents and Amber. It had begun. I sat on the window seat in what had been my childhood bedroom and finally listened to my voicemails. "Mom," sounding confused. "Melissa, Amber just told us the house sold. We're so happy for her. Was that why you dropped us at the hospital? Call immediately." Amber, furious. "What the hell, Melissa? The title company just told our agent that MT Future Holdings is you. You bought her house? Call me right now." I turned off my phone and sat in silence, looking out the window at the oak tree in the backyard. For the first time in my adult life, I felt completely in control of my destiny. The confrontation was coming, tonight, at the dinner I'd planned, but for now, this moment of peace in my reclaimed home was mine alone. I walked through each room again, this time making notes on my phone about what I would change and what I would preserve. The hideous gray paint in the entryway would be the first to go, revealing the growth chart underneath if it was still there. The kitchen cabinets my grandfather had built would stay, but with new hardware. From my purse, I took a small framed photo, me at my college graduation, standing alone in my cap and gown. I placed it on the mantel above the fireplace, the first personal touch in my new home. Amber and Brad had reluctantly agreed to meet us, probably planning to confront me. Little did they know, I was done being the passive daughter who accommodated everyone else's needs. Tonight, the family dynamic would change forever, and it would happen on my terms, in my newly purchased house. I reserved a private dining room at Maison Laurent, an upscale French restaurant in downtown Boston. The choice was deliberate. My family would be less likely to create a scene in such an elegant setting, with its crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths. I arrived 30 minutes early to ensure everything was perfect. Miss Thompson, the maitre d', greeted me. Your table is ready. The champagne you requested will be served upon your signal. Thank you, I replied, straightening the sleeves of my burgundy dress, another calculated choice. It was the most expensive item in my wardrobe, purchased for a company gala last year, projecting confidence and success. My parents arrived first, looking confused and agitated. They'd been surprisingly quiet during the car ride from the hospital, though I'd caught them exchanging worried glances. I deflected their questions with, "Let's discuss everything at dinner." Saying something about you buying the house? That can't be right. Let's wait for Amber and Brad, I said calmly, signaling the waiter to bring water. I don't want to explain this twice. We sat in uncomfortable silence until Amber and Brad stormed in 10 minutes late. Amber's face was flushed with anger, her designer purse clutched like a weapon. Brad looked more uncomfortable than outraged, trailing slightly behind his wife. You sneaky, manipulative, Amber began before even sitting down. Please, I interrupted, gesturing to their chairs. Let's sit and discuss this like adults. Reluctantly, they took their seats. The waiter appeared immediately with menus, which I accepted gratefully for the momentary distraction. I've taken the liberty of ordering appetizers for the table, I said, maintaining a composure I didn't entirely feel. The escargot here is excellent. I don't want escargot, Amber snapped. I want to know how you could do this to me. To us. I took a measured sip of water. Do what exactly? Make a real estate purchase. You know exactly what. You bought my house out from under me. Technically, I corrected her, I bought our parents' house, which they had given to you, and which you then put on the market for profit. I simply made the highest offer. Dad leaned forward. Melissa, why wouldn't you tell us? Why the secrecy? The fake company name. Would you have approved if I'd told you? I asked simply. Their silence was answer enough. The appetizers arrived, creating another brief reprieve from the tension. No one touched the food. I don't understand, Mom finally said. How could you even afford it? The house sold for over $700,000. I've been working in tech for 10 years, I replied. I've saved, invested, lived below my means. Unlike some people, I haven't had family bailouts, so I learned to manage my money carefully. Amber's face darkened. What is that supposed to mean? It means exactly what you think it means, I said, finally allowing some emotion into my voice. It means I've watched you receive everything from our parents, college tuition, business funding, down payments, while I worked multiple jobs and built my career without help. It means I've listened to them praise your every minor accomplishment while ignoring my achievements. It means I've reached my limit. That's not fair, Mom protested. We've always supported both our daughters. Have you? I asked. When's the last time you celebrated something I accomplished? Speaking for the first time, attempted diplomacy. Look, what's done is done. We've already spent some of the money on a deposit for a vacation home in Cape Cod. Maybe we can work something out? A rental agreement, perhaps. I smiled thinly. That won't be necessary. I'm moving into the house next month. What? Amber shrieked, drawing glances from the waitstaff. You can't do that. You have 2 weeks to collect them. After that, anything remaining becomes mine. This is absurd, Dad sputtered. You went behind our backs, created a shell company. An LLC, I corrected. Their guilty expressions confirmed what I already knew. You broke into my filing cabinet, I continued, looking directly at my parents. You violated my privacy. You discussed my savings with my sister and suggested I should liquidate my accounts to solve your housing problem, a problem you created by giving away your house. We didn't break in. Mom protested weakly. The key was in your desk drawer. That's your defense? That you snooped through my desk to find the key to snoop through my financial documents. The main course has arrived. Are you keeping the house as an investment property or what? I'm moving in, I repeated. It's my home now. And what about Mom and Dad? Amber demanded. Where are they supposed to live? With us in Cape Cod? I signaled the waiter, who brought the champagne I'd ordered earlier. As he poured 5 glasses, I gathered my thoughts. Here's what's going to happen, I said. Once the waiter had left. Mom and Dad, you're welcome to stay in the guest room when you visit. Not permanently, but for visits. The monthly fees are within your budget if you use the proceeds from your Social Security and pension. Senior living? Dad exclaimed. We're not invalids. No. You're retired homeowners who gave away your primary asset without a backup plan, I countered. These communities offer independence with support services as needed. You'd have your own apartment. Activities, transportation. And what about us? Amber demanded. We were counting on that money. You already received a gift worth over $500,000, I pointed out. The fact that you immediately tried to flip it for profit rather than live in it as intended is your choice. Perhaps reconsider the vacation home if finances are tight. I raised my champagne glass. To new beginnings. And to finally having honest conversations about the dynamics that have shaped our family for too long. No one joined my toast. Amber glared at me. Tears of rage forming in her eyes. I can't believe you would do this to your own sister. I didn't do anything to you, I replied calmly. I made a business transaction. The seller willingly accepted my offer. The fact that the seller was you is incidental. Incidental, she sputtered. You deliberately undermined me. The way I've been undermined my entire life? I asked quietly. The way my achievements have been minimized, my needs ignored, my boundaries violated? That kind of undermining. Mom began to cry softly. Dad stared at his untouched food. You never seemed to need us the way Amber did. Everyone needs their parents, Mom. Even the capable ones. Maybe especially the capable ones because we're so rarely offered help. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I let it stretch, no longer feeling responsible for easing family tensions. Finally, Dad spoke. So that's it? You've made your decision and we're supposed to just accept it. Yes, I said simply. The same way I've had to accept your decisions my entire life. Amber stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. Come on, Brad, we're leaving. Mom, Dad, you can stay with us until we figure something out. Brad looked uncertain. But honey, with the renovation plans for the Cape house. Not now, she snapped, grabbing her purse. My sister has clearly lost her mind, and I refuse to sit here any longer. As they stormed out, I felt oddly calm. The confrontation I'd dreaded for weeks had happened, and I was still standing. More than standing, I was finally being heard. My parents remained seated, looking shell-shocked. You really went through with this, Dad said, sounding more bewildered than angry now. You actually bought the house. I did, I confirmed. And I don't regret it. What about us? Mom asked quietly. Where do we go from here? I softened slightly at the genuine concern in her voice. I meant what I said. You're welcome to visit. We can look at those senior communities together if you'd like. Amber and I have never had the relationship you think we have. We've been cast in roles since childhood, she as the needy one, me as the self-sufficient one. Maybe now that those roles are disrupted, we can build something more authentic. As we finished our meal in subdued conversation, I felt a weight lifting. For the first time. My parents were really seeing me, not as the perpetually capable daughter who needed nothing, but as a person with needs, boundaries, and the strength to enforce them. When the check came, I paid it without discussion. As we walked out of the restaurant, Mom hesitated then asked, Can we see it? The house, I mean. Your house now. Not tonight, I said gently. But soon. When the dust has settled a bit. We parted ways with an awkward goodbye, my parents heading to a hotel I'd booked for them, me returning to my apartment alone. The confrontation was over. But the real work of reshaping our family dynamics had only just begun. 6 weeks after the restaurant confrontation, I turned the key in the lock of 47 Maple Street, not as a visitor or a daughter. I'd kept the furniture from my parents' time here, the oak dining table where we'd shared thousands of meals, the well-worn leather sofa where Dad had taught me to read, Mom's antique writing desk by the bay window. But I'd rearranged things, added my own touches, created a space that honored the past while firmly belonging to me. The most emotional project was uncovering the growth chart in the entryway. I spent a full Saturday carefully removing the gray paint Amber had applied, revealing the pencil marks underneath. Melissa, age 7, at the 4 feet 1 inch mark. Amber, age 5, at 3 feet 6 inches. Year after year, our progress marked in my father's neat handwriting. I sealed it with clear polyurethane, preserving it for whatever future might hold. For the first week, my phone remained largely silent. Amber hadn't spoken to me since storming out of the restaurant. My parents had sent a few tentative texts, which I'd answered politely but briefly. I needed this time alone to settle in, to reclaim the space, to process everything that had happened. Then, on a rainy Sunday morning, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my parents standing on the porch, looking uncertain. "We should have called first," Mom said hesitantly. Dad noted, touching its wooden frame gently. "And my writing desk," Mom added, running her fingers along its familiar surface. "Of course I did," I replied. "They're part of our family history." I made coffee, and we sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd gathered for breakfast every morning of my childhood. The conversation started awkwardly but gradually warmed as they asked about my renovation plans, praised my decorating choices, and shared memories prompted by various objects around the house. "We've been doing a lot of thinking," Dad finally said, setting down his coffee cup. "And a lot of talking." "About?" I prompted. "About how we've treated you," Mom said, her voice catching. "About the patterns we didn't even realize we'd established." "We visited that senior community you mentioned," Dad continued. "Brookline Terrace. It's actually quite nice. We've put down a deposit on a 2-bedroom unit." I blinked in surprise. "That's great. I'm glad you liked it." "It was time," Mom said. "Time for us to take responsibility for our choices, for our future." "You were right about that." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was a start, an acknowledgement that things needed to change. I shared my hurt over years of feeling overlooked, my frustration at the double standards, my hopes for healthier relationships moving forward. When they left that evening, something had shifted between us. Not healed completely, but shifted in a promising direction. Amber took longer. 3 weeks after I moved in, I received a text from her. "Brad and I are coming to get the last of our things tomorrow at 2. Will you be home?" When they arrived, Amber was coldly polite, barely making eye contact as they collected boxes from the garage. Brad, surprisingly, was warmer, complimenting the improvements I'd made and asking genuine questions about my plans for the property. As they were loading the final boxes into their SUV, Amber finally spoke directly to me. "You know, you could have just said something. All these years, if you felt treated unfairly, you could have spoken up. Would you have listened?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer immediately, which was itself a kind of answer. "I never asked them to favor me," she finally said. "I know," I replied. "But you never refused it either." She nodded slightly, a reluctant acknowledgement. The Cape House fell through. The inspection found major foundation issues. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" she challenged. "Yes, actually. I never wanted you to fail, Amber. I just wanted equity." Something in my tone must have reached her because her expression softened slightly. "This isn't how I imagined things would go." "Me neither," I admitted. "But maybe it's where we needed to end up." It wasn't a reconciliation, but it was a conversation, the first honest one we'd had in years. As they drove away, I felt a glimmer of hope that someday we might build a relationship based on mutual respect rather than established family roles. Healing came in other forms too. My best friend Allison became a regular visitor, helping me paint rooms and plant a vegetable garden in the backyard. My colleagues, intrigued by snippets of the story I'd shared, organized a proper housewarming party. Even my ex-boyfriend Nathan reached out after hearing through mutual friends about my badass real estate coup, as he called it. "The place looks amazing," he said when he visited, whistling appreciatively at the renovations I'd completed. "You've really made it your own." "That was the goal," I replied, showing him the newly remodeled kitchen where I'd preserved my grandfather's cabinets but updated everything else. "I always knew you had this in you," he said as he was leaving. "This strength. I'm just glad you finally see it too." One unexpected development came in the form of my new neighbor, Ryan. He'd moved in next door a month after I did. A landscape architect with a quick smile and a genuine interest in the history of the neighborhood. He'd stop by with questions about local restaurants or to borrow tools, staying for coffee and conversation that grew increasingly easy and enjoyable. "You know," he said one evening as we sat on my front porch, "when I first heard the story of how you bought this place, the neighborhood grapevine is very efficient. I thought it was just about getting revenge on your family." "It started that way, partly," I admitted, "but it became something more." "I can see that," he said, looking at the care I'd put into preserving certain elements while making the space truly mine. "It's about reclaiming your story." His insight startled me. "Exactly. How did you know?" He smiled. "I did something similar after my divorce. Sometimes you need to physically rebuild to emotionally rebuild." 6 months after moving in, I hosted a small dinner party. My parents were there, now settled in their senior living apartment and gradually adjusting to their new life. Allison came with her husband. Ryan arrived with a bottle of wine and a homemade pie. As we gathered around the dining table, the same table where our family had eaten countless meals over decades, I looked at the faces illuminated by candlelight and felt a profound sense of peace. Not because everything was resolved, but because I had finally taken control of my own story. Later that night, after everyone had left, I sat alone on the porch swing, listening to the familiar creaks of the house settling. The journey had been difficult, expensive, emotionally draining, but worth every penny and every tear. I had learned that setting boundaries wasn't selfish but necessary for healthy relationships. That standing up for yourself might cause conflict, but could ultimately lead to greater respect. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is to break dysfunctional patterns, even when it hurts. Most importantly, I'd learned that homes aren't just about the structures themselves, but about the sense of belonging and agency they represent. By reclaiming this physical space, I'd reclaim something more valuable: my voice, my worth, my place in my own life story. As I rocked gently on the porch swing, watching fireflies blink in the yard where I'd once played as a child, I felt a sense of possibility I hadn't experienced in years. The past would always be part of me, but it no longer defined me. I had built something new on that foundation, something stronger, healthier, and truly mine. Have you ever had to take a stand against your family to protect yourself? What boundaries have you had to set with loved ones? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences. And don't forget to share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being, even when family is involved. Thank you for being part of this community where we can share our truths and grow together. Until next time, remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is write your own ending to a story others tried to control.